Morning of September 18th, 1939. The sun struggles to pierce gray clouds over the mud-churned fields of the Bzura, where the air carries the metallic smell of blood mixed with fresh gunpowder, and the ground trembles with the distant roar of advancing German engines. Polish soldiers, exhausted with cold sweat under torn uniforms, prepare for the final surrender of their desperate counteroffensive. Their hearts pounding like war drums, while paralyzing terror tightens their dry throats with the echo of sporadic shots breaking the oppressive silence of dawn. This is the front line of the Nazi-Soviet vice, where brutality intensifies day by day, transforming resilient hopes into scenes of visceral surrender. With the stench of blood-soaked mud mixing with the smell of earth churned by relentless treads. September 18th seals the end of Poland's greatest counteroffensive. With the Poznan army under General Tadeusz Kotreba and the Pomorze army of Władysław Bortnowski collapsing under the German encirclement, thousands of troops, including the 4th, 14th, 17th, 26th, and 27th Infantry Divisions, lay down arms in ditches filled with mud and twisted bodies, the metallic tang of blood mingling with the scent of earth torn by tanks rumbling like ravenous beasts. Generals like Franciszek Władysław fall in the field, the final crack of gunfire echoing like a requiem, while survivors feel the chill of handcuffs against skin, the bitter taste of frustration in dry mouths. Knowing their boldness delayed the German push on Warsaw by precious days, but at a visceral cost of around 20,000 Polish lives against 8,000 enemy dead. In the east, near the secret borders of betrayal, Polish hopes for regrouping shatter under the Soviet tide, crossing into the gray zones of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, where the constant hum of enemy planes makes every shadow a threat, muscles tense in anticipation of boots falling like inexorable rain. The Soviet advance devours eastern Poland's heart, with Red Army columns nearing the secret demarcation line, encountering German troops who, in a grim gesture of complicity, hand over Polish prisoners of war like unwanted trophies. The drone of Soviet aircraft slices the autumn sky, forcing civilians to dive into ditches where damp soil clings to clothes, hearts pounding against ribs to the thunder of marching boots. In Lwow, Polish resistance wavers, with Soviet generals ordering surrenders that seal thousands' fates. Air heavy with dust from cratered roads and the sulfurous reek of recent artillery. As families feel the oppressive weight of double betrayal, icy sweat beading on backs amid the fog of uncertainty. Warsaw, the besieged capital, morphs into a cauldron of fire and rubble, the German army with 13 divisions and 1,000 artillery pieces, attacking the districts from both sides of the Vistula. The wide and somber river echoing the impacts of bombs falling like destructive hail, opening smoking craters in the ground that trembles like a living earthquake. The air vibrates with the deafening roar of Luftwaffe planes, releasing explosive loads that make buildings collapse into piles of hot rubble, the smell of burned wood and scorched flesh impregnating everything, while civilians with panic freezing their muscles and icy sweat running down pale faces run to improvised shelters, feeling the heat of flames licking cracked walls and muffled screams echoing through narrow and pitted streets. Thousands of Jews and Poles, a third of the city's population, face daily terror, their prayers in synagogues interrupted by the boom of explosions shaking the stained glass, mixing dust and smoke with sacred incense, while the smell of collective fear hangs dense in the confined air. Public parks become makeshift cemeteries, the scent of freshly dug earth and wilted flowers hanging in heavy air, evoking the raw horror of a city that bleeds, with around 18,000 civilians dead by the siege's end. But on the 18th, the daily inferno exacts its toll in blasts that carve deep emotional scars like the paralyzing terror of mothers clutching inert bodies under hot debris. Amid the capital's chaos, a Polish doctor joins a group scavenging for supplies in a pharmacy under crossfire. Air vibrating with shell impacts, tearing through like ghostly howls. The clatter of debris and the smell of sulfur burning the nostrils. There they uncover a German spy, a 12-year resident in Poland with a miniature radio transmitter sending messages to the enemy headquarters. Its low hum echoing like whispered treason. After brief formalities, the Poles execute him with calculated coldness, the dry crack of the shot slicing tense silence, leaving a trail of summary justice that tightens the chest like a grim reminder of war without quarter. Fresh gunpowder scent permeating the damp basement where his fall's echo mixes with distant artillery thunder. Further north of Berlin, at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, Nazism's brutal face reveals itself in rawest form, transforming guarded silence into scenes of visceral horror with the stench of overcrowding mixing with the smell of fear-churned despair. Lothar Erdmann, trade union journalist and critic of the pre-1933 regime, courageously protests prisoner mistreatment, feeling chains weight against skin as his words echo through fetid barracks. In retaliation, SS guards beat him savagely, fists thudding like muffled thunder, inflicting severe internal injuries that kill him on the 18th. Air thick with sweat and fear in overcrowded dorms, broken only by witnesses' stifled sobs, evoking the paralyzing terror of an oppression machine devouring even reluctant sympathizers. Global reactions filter like distant echoes amid the turmoil. In London and Paris, diplomats debate furiously, but aid is delayed, with only empty declarations reaching Polish ears, leaving them alone in the vortex of destruction, feeling the weight of betrayal like a cold blade in the back. In Britain, radio listeners catch William Joyce's nasal voice for the first time. The traitor dubbed Lord Haw-Haw broadcasting from Berlin on shortwave, mocking Poland's defeat with an affected accent that cuts like a cold blade, promising the Allies' war is lost. Living room air thickens with indignation. Radios tuned in darkness as families feel propaganda's chill. Static hiss blending with nighttime hearth roars. A visceral reminder that the battle for minds rages as fiercely as front lines. Meanwhile, the first British expeditionary force lands in France, but with no immediate offensive, leaving Poles with abandonment's bitter taste. The hollow alliances wait, pressing shoulders like an invisible pack. Papers like The Times report Polish resilience, but Western impotence tolls like a funeral bell, London civilians feeling collective guilt's cold sweat while reading distant suffering. September 18th mirrors modern brutality's escalation, where tanks crush hopes, bombs reap innocence, and betrayals seal fates, leaving trails of bodies and ruins scented with sulfur and grief. Polish soldiers, trembling hands on rusted rifles, feel night's cold seeping damp trenches, while villagers in razed homes weep over burned ashes, air dense with charred wood and palpable despair. As twilight falls over blood-soaked fields, tomorrow's uncertainty hangs like cold fog, a dark omen that survival's fight exacts a sensory toll, touching every nerve in a symphony of pain and fragile defiance. Poland, torn yet unbroken, clings to hope's shards, as distant cannon echoes promise more torment on the shadowed horizon. To not miss the next day, subscribe, like, and comment.